Hello, everyone. So let's tune into this week's lunar eclipse. It's a very interesting one, and I have a lot to say about it. I'm going to start by just looking at the basic astrology and then share some insights and stories and reflections. Eclipses always happen when the lunar nodes coincide with the current lunar cycle. So a new moon or a full moon on the nodes of the moon. In this case, we have a lunar eclipse. This is a full moon happening in proximity to the lunar nodes. This is an out of sign eclipse, right? So the full moon is in Pisces, Virgo, and the nodes are in Aries, Libra. It's not super uncommon. What's unique about this is a very mutable situation. It brings in Jupiter, which squares the full moon. And you see right here, the moon is close to, there we go, Saturn and Neptune. So it's a very mutable configuration relative to a cardinal nodal axis. The first thing that I want to point out relative to that is all of these very strong mutable energies are going to be even more active in the coming months. Right? The nodes go backwards. So towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, they're going to be regressing into the Virgo-Pisces axis, which means the next eclipse cycles are all going to be involving Virgo-Pisces nodes. And in fact, the very next eclipse in about 6 months from now will also involve Jupiter. So this Jupiter in Gemini is very important. It's kind of like an activation of this Jupiter in Gemini, and even more so in 2025. Further, of course, we have a very strong movement of Saturn and Neptune coming together. So let's just take a look at what it looks like in 2025 so you can see what I'm talking about. So we'll progress forward. Watch the sun right here. This is the sun on the north node. So this is just, a few days after another lunar eclipse, which happens close to the nodes. And you can see Jupiter is squaring that. Let's actually go back in time a little bit to the new moon that would have happened maybe early March. I just want to show you this. We're going to have a new moon in Pisces, more or less there, also squaring Jupiter. So during this whole time, starting this particular eclipse, there's this growing activation of Jupiter in Gemini as it relates to the nodal axis. All right, so here we are right now. It definitely then warrants some attention on this Jupiter in Gemini. The next thing I'll point out is Jupiter is soon to station retrograde. Right between now and the next eclipse, where Jupiter is also really active, there's going to be a lot of activity. Okay, Jupiter is going to square Saturn twice more. It's going to then square Neptune, and it's going to finally move into Cancer not long after the next eclipse cycle in 2025. This is a very activated Jupiter, and we're really just getting started. Okay, so let's unpack the meaning of this particular lunar eclipse, but then also the larger cycle that's really beginning to emerge for the collective over the next several months. I'll introduce this with a little story. So I was listening to a really beautiful interview that Brittany Shawley from Miracles of Mind gave with Marianne Williamson. Brittany Shawley has a Course in Miracles podcast, and I was really fascinated to hear her speak with Marianne Williamson, who I'm sure many of you know has run for president, but is also a devotee of A Course in Miracles. And I take such great fascination in people that are on this, deep, authentic spiritual path, especially more of a non-dual path, who get involved in very seemingly worldly things, right? I'm generally very fascinated by that. And one thing that Marianne said that I found very beautiful, and it was almost like I knew this, but hearing it spoken kind of landed something in me. She said a lot of things that one mistake a lot of people make about the Course is that it's all about just correcting our thinking about the world, and it's just, do nothing. And there, in fact, is a teaching, I need do nothing. But there's another component to the teachings of the Course, which is I really need do nothing according to my own limited thinking and perceptions. A big part of the practice is guidance. And in several ways throughout the Course, there's a prayer that's restated, but it always basically says, take me where you would want me to go, to be with whom you would want me to be with, to say what you would want me to say. This day is in your control. Today, let me perform the miracles you would have me perform. And this is something that I come back to. Have me teach what you would want me to learn. The core principles of A Course in Miracles is about being a conduit of miracles. It's very much about doing. And the thing that I think is really healing and beautiful about the teachings, and you'll see where I'm going with this in terms of the astrology in a moment, is it says all circumstances of our life and all personality structures, all pathways can be used by the Holy Spirit, can be used by God for healing purposes according to the greater plan of return. Everyone and everything can be devoted and designated for holiness. And this is such an important teaching because more rigid thinking might have these sort of moralistic beliefs or dogmas. This is the right way to eat, or this is the right way to practice, or if you want to have a spiritual impact, these are the things that you should do with your life to have an impact spiritually. It might almost feel somewhat allergic to the full scope of the world in its entirety. And that's something that's beautiful about A Course in Miracles, is there's no judgment about any circumstance or experience, and we're training our minds not to judge. So she was saying, gave many examples. You might find yourself playing the role of a parent, of a teacher, of a politician. Any manifestation, any form can be the vehicle or the vessel for love to work its way through us according to its will, right? And of course, we receive and we grow through that. And I was thinking, that's a part of how I am orienting to astrology. Its meaning for me is how it can be truly helpful on our own spiritual journey. And I'm always trying to find a language, or I care to find a language that won't alienate or say, this is only going to make some sense to some people, or you have to believe in this thing for this to work, or to have this experience. Here's a belief system that you need to adopt for yourself. But just to kind of look at the truth, the flow of the cosmos within, and see what's the teaching from the point of view of we're all here to grow and learn and remember. And thus this principle of love has no limits for how it can be communicated and understood. So this is very hard for the mind that's wanting to grab onto it and say, here are the words to believe, the right way, the things to know. Jupiter and Gemini can kind of be a little tricky. It's going to say the path is going to take you places that will open your mind. Now, relative to the Virgo-Pisces axis, love, truth, and how you can be of service, that which is beyond you is going to speak to you and through you, but you have to be open-minded. If I were to give a theme for this eclipse, it's open-mindedness. And there can be a transcendence in this, in recognizing, I never thought of that before. Because we have a tendency to, even without knowing it, to quantify our life in empirical ways that in our mind make sense, but we didn't realize that we just decided it's true. I was listening to a brilliant talk also tonight by Charles Eisenstein. And to summarize what he said, he was saying one of the issues we have with, caring for the environment, when we as a humanity began thinking about the effect we're having on nature and how we're hurting nature, we began taking tests, right? Measuring our carbon footprint, right? As a result of becoming more aware of our carbon footprint and the effect that we're having on the earth, we will do things like, measure how big is your footprint, right? Lowering emissions, changing from fossil fuel technologies to other technologies, right? But the issue with that is our understanding of nature and our caring of nature, of this world, cannot really be quantified through statistics and data, because as long as we're doing that, we can always then say, okay, I have the data, now I know what to do according to that data. It's like feeding the linear mind that just wants to know what to believe, what to do, what to change, what to build. But it's a relationship to a whole organism, to a whole reality that can't ever be understood statistically or quantifiably. Now we're mining all over the planet for these metals that we use for our batteries. We have to consider the social, for indigenous communities, how we're affecting social environments, the larger imprint we're having on ecosystems, the water. There are so many things to consider that, in fact, if we were just collecting data, we would never really ever come into a holistic relationship with nature, one that is caring. And I bring that forward just to really highlight how easy it is for us as a collective and as individuals to think in very linear and defined terms. And we can do that with our health as well. Like, I'm experiencing a problem, what's a quick fix? We want to go into linear solutions. And it's confusing, but we do this more than we realize. And this square to the Virgo-Pisces axis really speaks to that, because the teaching is really about being fundamentally open-minded. I'm going to find myself in experiences and circumstances, and I don't need to have all the data and to kind of concretize clear, absolute certainty about what's going on. It's not our job with Gemini to know all of it. Pretty soon after I release this video, Adam Ellenboss is going to be, and I might also put it on my channel, releasing the first of a series of conversations that we're sharing in comparing the similarities and differences between Hellenistic and evolutionary astrology. This excites me to no end, and it's a very Jupiter and Gemini. It's very appropriate for this particular transit. And it's opening pathways of perspective where maybe for some of you have said, evolutionary astrology is, the only legit. All the other ones are superficial. And I know that's a sentiment that many souls have. There can be an unintentional, I know it all attitude. And many people who have studied ancient astrology or Hellenistic astrology might look at EA and maybe other modern astrological systems as like new agey or not legit enough because it's new or it was channeled. And we'll just decide these things in our mind as if we got it all figured out logically. But we don't know what we don't know. So there's an open-mindedness and there's this profound humility in these signatures. So another story. Amongst many of my more religious Christian friends, right, when they hear that I have a strong relationship to Jesus, they say, "Oh, so you're a Jew for Jesus," and I never know what to say about that. I know where they're coming from, right? Because in their world, in their mind, it's like believing in Jesus is like a religious thing. It's like a religious construct, and it's like I have the hardest time explaining this and I don't know if I need to explain it. But I just thought of a really great way to explain it. Saying that I'm a Jew for Jesus is like me saying I like cheese, and then you say, "Oh, you are a white person for cheese." Me being white-skinned has nothing to do with my relationship to cheese. I just want to laugh. Hopefully you get where I'm going with this. But you're white and you like cheese, right? But you like Jesus, but you're Jewish, so you're right. It's like there's no inherent connection, right? So the question then becomes, what does it mean to love cheese? What does it mean to love Jesus? Jesus. I didn't think of that before. So that's another little Gemini trick. Praise Jesus. So to actually look at what does it mean, not to project our own logical association to things that we've already kind of associated in our mind already. And just to speak to that, because I can share freely on my YouTube channel and come from the heart. To me, Jesus essentially it has nothing to do with religion. And that's my inner experience of him is he kind of woke up from Judaism. He woke up from any kind of differential, and that was like the radical thing about him. He did healings and he taught Jews and non-Jews alike. Like he brought forward the Piscean unity, pointing to who we essentially are. And it transcended any kind of sectarian religious thinking that says, I'm this person. Right? His whole teaching, as I experience it, is going beyond all identifications. See, I'm Jewish, but it's me loving Jesus has nothing to do with that. And it's the same idea, like the miracles and the mind, the ways in which love wants to work through us. It's going to reach all people in all walks of life, from all cultural or social or religious backgrounds, indiscriminately. And the only thing that becomes an issue is when our mind decided what's allowed or what's not allowed or what's okay. The very first time I ever stepped foot in an ashram, people were bowing down and to statues, and I was like so uncomfortable. I had all these associations with what that meant. I had to relearn interpretation. I had to look at it and be open to thinking of it in a different way. And I think that's the beauty of Jupiter and Gemini in this full moon lunar eclipse. You bring this back to the Aries Libra axis, which is, also this Aries Libra axis during this eclipse is still very much strongly squaring Mars. So we have a very cardinal reality simultaneous, this very strong mutable reality, all coming together for this eclipse. We might have to allow ourselves to be more expansive than who we've learned to be in relationships, like what people expect of us or who we've told ourselves we need to be. There's a quality of forgiveness here to really allow ourselves to see the world anew, to loosen the world from all that we thought it was. And then it's like what I'm experiencing in this series with Adam Allenboss, it's just so beautiful, the conversations, the interactions, and the prayers. May this be helpful. May these dialogues truly be helpful. There's nothing more beautiful to me than bringing the larger astrological community together. It feels no different than take Jesus again. It's like you have all these, people being healed by Jesus, and they're Jewish, right? And it's like, the Romans, and then Jesus is like, no, the Romans too. It's like, what? And I just think that's like a symbol for something we're all learning to do. Like, where are the no's? Where are the, like, I'm putting a box and a classification, and Saturn being involved is a big part. Our judgments are such a big part of this, and Saturn's going to be very involved and engaged in the next eclipse season as well. These, lines in the sand that we draw that say God can't enter here. I've already made up my mind. I've already decided. I have a song that is just deeply resonant with this eclipse cycle. I'm going to link that in the description below. The name of the song is And You Take Me Where You Want Me to Go. I was going to sing it, and then I got really shy, and I'm just going to embrace that. But listen to it if you feel like receiving some extra inspiration. It's a very beautiful song. As always, I am available for one-on-one sessions and soul-to-soul long-term companionship sessions. Check out the description below for that, and for my classes, my self-study training program, and the upcoming Evolutionary Astrology Conference. I also have a series on planets that square the nodes coming up. You can register below for the free intro talk that will happen in October. As always, thank you so much for watching.